Hello and welcome to another episode on Journey to Authenticity, a podcast helping you to become fully authentic on your journey to success. My name is Braden Belknap and I'm a human just like you, striving to build my dream life, all while I stay true to myself. But what if you struggle with confidence? What if you struggle not even liking yourself? Struggling claiming your value instead of subscribing to your value based upon somebody else's perspective? That's exactly why we have Ann Washburn coming in today. She struggled with it all. She struggled with confidence. She struggled with relationships, setting boundaries so that the relationships that she had could thrive. She struggled with overall simply being abundant. That's exactly why we have her in today, because she's transformed all of that. Starting with her journey of body language, creating awareness of how she could grow. Today, she brings you through that journey so that you can claim your confidence, you can claim your value, and you can go into the world and create what you know to be true. Hey everyone, I want to take a quick moment to introduce you to Storm Warrior Tactical, the company that offers top quality clothing that not only looks great, but also serves as a daily reminder to conquer your own personal challenges. Check out some of my favorite picks from their website in the links below, or visit stormwarriortactical.com to explore their full range. Ann, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. When I transformed my life, after about 6 months to a year, I started going to 3 Key Elements events. So it's so fun to have you here.
Nice. That's so cool.
First one was the body language class. So
nice. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it was a good starter into taking my personal development to the next level.
Yeah. And that's one thing people don't realize is that body language can do exactly that, is take you to the next level.
It creates awareness. It's like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. Oh, I'm nervous.
Yes.
Or, oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm really angry. It really starts to create self-awareness that allows you to transform your own life.
Well, and awareness is the first step to any change. That's what people don't realize. I'm going to jump right into how your brain works.
Please.
And that is that awareness happens in your prefrontal cortex. It's part of your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is where we behave most of the time. So it's like the autopilot in your car, your subconscious is. But in order to make a change or a choice, you have to be in your front of your brain. You have to be in I like how they say the right mind. You have to be in your prefrontal cortex in order to make a choice or a change. And the first step to tipping into there is awareness of what's going on. If you're not aware, there's no choice and no change that can happen.
Absolutely. I love that. So what inspired you to get into coaching and speaking and teaching about body language?
Because your mess is always your message. And I was such a mess. So I couldn't talk to people. I had no confidence. So my past, as you know, was an engineer. And I'm still an engineer, but I worked in flight simulation and explosives. And I couldn't talk to people. I was afraid of everyone. I really had no confidence. And I couldn't understand why people were always mad at me. I felt like I was always in trouble. And you know how we were talking earlier about how if you need other people's approval, that can be a real hindrance to moving forward. I needed everyone's approval. And so one day I was actually I'd sent my little kids to school and I was just sitting on the couch in my pajamas and my fuzzy slippers. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? I'm an engineer. I solve problems. And that's when I started looking on the internet and I came across this concept. This was 13 years ago, mind you. So it was before as big of buzzwords as there are out there now of body language. And I was like, body language, what can that even mean? And so I started looking into it. And I remember I'm looking at this TV show and I'm watching, they're interviewing a whole row of celebrities. There's 12 celebrities, and they're all just standing there and they're taking turns interviewing them. And I'm looking at them and they all are standing in these very confident poses. And I was like, I wonder what that's like. And I stood up in my living room in my pajamas and I tried on one of their poses. You know, I watched one of them. I'm like, okay, I put my shoulders up and I put my chin up and I kind of look just sideways a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that feels so weird. And that got me thinking, why does it feel weird to stand confident? So that was like the moment that I was like, I have to figure out more about this. I have to change something, because it was spilling over onto my kids. It was causing, little kids, they were like in kindergarten and first grade, and already they were exhibiting the same kind of anxiety as me. They were acting anxious, and I was like, why are they acting anxious? And I was like, oh, because I act anxious all the time. So my own inabilities caused me to change my career path and start doing something very different than what I was doing. Instead of engineering mechanical things, I started engineering myself. I started looking and understanding and solving psychology things because I wanted to help me. But the things that I learned to help me started helping other people. So that's where I changed, was that point 13, almost 14 years ago.
Absolutely. Our mess is what gives us permission to change and to transform and to also help other people solve their messes.
Yeah, because anybody who has a mess, you have opportunity to grow. And when you figure out how to grow, somebody behind you is going to need that message. So think of it like a freeway. It's the law of the freeway. There's always somebody ahead of you, and there's always someone behind you. So whatever you learn from those ahead of you and teach those behind you, it helps the whole world get down the road better.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you were acting in a certain way, which is causing your kids to act in a certain way. So did you learn this behavior from your parents, or where did you pick this up?
Oh, that's a really good question. So in the psychology, over these years, I've mentored and trained many people, but a lot of therapists and scientists and doctors have come through my trainings, which I find fascinating. But one of them that came through was a neuroscientist. And so I started explaining from my perspective what was going on. And she came to me after class and she goes, "You just explained that better than my science books in college." She goes, "That's exactly what's going on." So this is what it is. When we're born, we're a blank slate. You know that. We don't know anything when we come. But what we do know, we do have a survival instinct. And that survival instinct is, I need others to take care of me. Because as humans, we're born helpless because of our big brains. And so I need others to take care of me. So we are wired to quickly adapt to the people around us. And so if I'm adapting to people who already have programs that aren't about confidence or who are very anxious all the time, I'm going to adapt by absorbing that same kind of program of anxiousness. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so my dad was raised in foster care and my mom was raised in an abusive environment that was odd. And they're both youngest children, and I'm the oldest guinea pig. So when I was born to these two youngest children who didn't know how to be parents, they were very anxious. They were very low on confidence. And I absorbed a lot of those things. And we're wired to absorb those programs directly into our subconscious so that we're wired to take care of sameness. And so if the parent sees the child being similar to them, they're more, at a subconscious level, more wired to take care of them. Did you follow all that?
Up to this point, yes.
Okay, good. So that means my programming, and that happens between the ages of 0 and 2 years old, everything goes directly into our programming. And we don't remember it. Sometimes we'll have a memory from earlier than 2 years old, but most of the time we don't. And then up till 5 years old and 8 years old, we're switching into a more conscious level of growth. But before that, we're at a subconscious level of growth. So those programs now are there waiting for upgrades. So like in my TED Talk, I talked about that we're needing that message on our computer that says, "Hey, there's an update ready. Do you want me to install it?" We need that for ourselves. Our subconscious has one of those, and it sends it out in the form of repeating problems. So if I have a repeating problem in my life, it's an indicator I have a program that needs to be upgraded. And for me, I was always in trouble. People were always angry at me. And I'm like, I need to upgrade this. And so now body language is your chance to interrupt the program and choose a new one and install it.
So what was that last time that person got angry at you that you were like, I really need to change something?
It was that moment when I was in the living room in my pajamas and I'd sent my kids to school and somebody knocked on my front door and I couldn't answer it. I was so afraid that it would be somebody that would be upset at me, because I had a neighbor that would knock on my door and yell at me for things that didn't make any sense. And I'm like, why does she feel like she can just yell at me? Why do I not have any boundaries here? What's the missing piece? So I just got to where I was just tired, for lack of a better word, of being in trouble.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes. Well said.
Transformation comes from grave pain or grave pleasure. One of the two.
Yeah.
That's fair. And I love how far you've come, because as you talked about the freeway, you're painting the examples for young women or even elderly women, all of the above, on how to be strong.
Oh, yeah.
Set those boundaries.
Yeah. And not do it in a way that we poke others, because that's one thing that is frustrating in the self-help world, or the self-development, not self-help. I want to say self-development world, because I love that there's so many people that are willing to develop themselves. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who tip into, in order to develop myself, I need to poke other people. And I need to prove that I need to pull them down so that I feel better. And that doesn't help anybody.
Absolutely. You can either be the biggest flame, the biggest fire by putting everybody else's out, or you can just build everybody else's up and then naturally yours is going to get bigger.
Yes. Yep.
So you had that moment, you found body language. What was the journey to overcoming the boundaries, letting people get mad at you for no reason at all? What was your journey like to really transforming this?
That's a great question. That journey is going to be the same thing that we all get to go through. Well, this part of it, at least. That my journey looked like I had to notice what I was doing, that awareness part. I had to make a new choice. And then I had to imperfectly practice new behavior. That's what we all get to do, is those 3 steps. We become aware of something, we choose something different, and then we imperfectly practice. Because if we think we have to do it perfectly, that's going to shut us down into old behavior. Our subconscious jumps all over that and goes, oh, if I have to be perfect, let me just do what I was already doing because that's safer. And so it looked very messy. I would try to adjust my body language instead of because if you think about it, when people self-protect, their body language is shrinking. So shoulders will come down, arms will come in, legs will cross. We get smaller to try to protect ourselves. And I realized I was doing that all the time. Every time I interacted with other people, I was shrinking. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to shrink today. I remember clearly, because I was at my son's kindergarten classroom, and I was like, I'm going to walk into his kindergarten classroom, and today I'm not going to shrink. I'm not going to be worried ahead of time that people don't like me before I walk into the building. I mean, for Pete's sake, I'm just walking from the parking lot to the kindergarten classroom where I was volunteering. And already I was so worried about what everybody would think about me. So before I even got to the front door of the school, I already had my arms folded. And I was like, no, today I'm going to be more open. So I opened the front door, opened the breezeway door, go in, and already I'm holding my arms again. And I'm like, Ann, it's okay. There's nobody in this hallway. You don't have to protect yourself. So I had to sit and keep choosing. I like to say that every new behavior has to be chosen into enough times. You don't just choose into a new behavior once. You have to choose into it multiple times. And for me, I had to choose into it. That hallway was probably 30 feet long. And I probably had to choose into my new behavior 10 times in 30 feet. Because I'm like, I can do this. I want this. But your subconscious is the seat of your self-sabotage. So your subconscious tries to trick you into past behavior. Because if it can keep you in past behavior, your subconscious doesn't care if your behavior is good for your results or your future or your goals. What it cares about is that it can keep you safe and familiar and in control. So your subconscious will sabotage growth behavior because it doesn't know that that can be safe. And so I have to choose in enough times for my subconscious to catch on that this won't kill me, that this will be okay.
Absolutely. The thought process that came to mind was shame, right? If you mentioned imperfect practice, and imperfect practice and giving ourselves permission to be imperfect at practicing what we want or need in our life, it eliminates the shame. And shame is what puts us back into past behavior. When we give ourselves grace, it allows us to move forward.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially if you look at, it depends on how you define shame. But if you look at shame as just believing that that I don't have value, or I'm not supposed to be better than where I am, yeah, then for sure you're going to put yourself back in there. But our self-sabotage comes out in so many ways. It can come out in picking fights with people. It can come out in eating bad food, scrolling the internet all day long. There's ways that we physically do it, time do it, mentally do it, emotionally do it. For example, earlier today I was in a mentoring appointment because I have a certain number of people that I can personally mentor. And I was in a personal mentoring appointment and we were talking about just that. And she realized that one of the ways her subconscious would sabotage her was she would get sick. She was like sick for like 2 months straight because she had this goal. And until she could recognize that the sickness was protecting her from having to take steps forward, she couldn't do anything about it. And when she realized that, she'd be like, oh, you know what? I need to show myself, my body, that it's okay, that reaching this goal is not dangerous. And then her body got to quit being sick because she can recognize that. So that's how powerful our subconscious is and our body language is. Your body language is the liaison between that subconscious and conscious, because your body language gets to speak to both parts of your brain.
Absolutely. So what I'm most curious about now is your kids. You mentioned that you started to see their anxious behavior once you became aware of your own. One, as a mom, how did you facilitate or help facilitate their own transformation, and how are they doing today?
Right. So it's interesting because when I started this world, my oldest, how old was he? My oldest was a teenager and my youngest was just a toddler. And so they all got to start seeing me at different ages. So they're an interesting spectrum of how they have adapted to what I do. Because one thing you got to remember is your kids would rather learn from anybody than you when they're teenagers. When they're little, they pick up on a lot of it better. And so it's been kind of fun because when I first started changing, well, let me back up and tell you this, because this matters to everybody who's listening to this, is that when you first start to change, people around you, their subconscious won't like that things are different. So they'll start to push on you or pull on you a little to try to get you back into who you were. Right?
Absolutely.
Because they want sameness too. So that happened at first with my kids, my in-laws, my extended family. They're like, no, we don't interact like we used to. We need you to be the old Ann, not the new Ann. But you got to be willing to hold that new space long enough for people to get used to it. And so that happened with my kids. At first, they especially the older ones, they fought against it. They're like, no. So like my daughter, she has since admitted that there was one time when she was a teenager that she was in her room just fuming about something I had said to her. And then she remembered in that moment, she goes, oh my gosh, Mom told me that there would be times when I got older that I would not like what she said, and I would think that she was wrong. And that in that moment, because what I had told them when they were younger was, hey, how much do you think Mom and Dad know right now? And they're like, oh, Mom and Dad know everything. And it's like, well, there'll be a time when you're in a teenager that you don't think we know anything, that you won't believe anything that we're saying. And in that moment, I just want you to remember that we had this conversation. And if we knew that, maybe we know something else. And so she said that in that moment, she remembered that conversation and she went, oh, maybe I should listen to Mom and Dad a little bit. And she said it made a big difference. It made a big difference because she didn't stay in that rebellion. So it's made some powerful changes, and not all of them are recognized by them, but they, like one of my sons came to me just last month. And he goes, Mom, thank you. He's my middle one, so he really is the one that saw both worlds the most.
Sure.
He goes, Mom, thank you for all the work you went into, all the work you did to change into the person you are now. Because I'm realizing now how important that was and how much of a difference it's made for us. So there's some gratifying moments.
How does that feel when you hear that from your son?
Oh my gosh. It's like, yes, it's all been worth it. Because it doesn't mean that there's not challenges. We all will still have challenges. But the real question is, how will we respond to them?
Of course. Reaction versus action. Mm-hmm. So there's a big difference.
Yeah, or reaction versus response. Can I respond instead of just reacting the way my default is?
Absolutely. So I'm curious how your relationship with your husband was back then, when you were in your lack of confidence, for better words.
That's so funny, because I actually was writing about that this morning, because so this morning I love CrossFit. So CrossFit is like my thing. I love it. So I went to CrossFit this morning, and on the way home, it's a 10-mile drive. And I hit every red light, every single red light. And not only did I hit a red light, but like I hit the red light, and when I went to turn, there was a car just sitting crossways across all the lanes of traffic because they were waiting for a break to be able to pull in, but they were just sitting there in our lanes, and we had just turned left, and we're like, okay. So as soon as we got past that lady, half a mile down the road, there's this camper that's stalled in the middle of the road. And then we get around that, and not one, but two different dump trucks pulled in front of me. And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. But then I'm on the highway, so it's 55-mile-an-hour highway. And all of a sudden, there's this street sweeper on the right side of the road. And it decides to do a U-turn across all 4 lanes of traffic right in front of me. And now, did you ever watch The Truman Show?
Yes.
You know the moment when the director doesn't want him to drive this way, so he sends a traffic jam in front of him? I was like, that's what this feels like. It's like, who's sending this traffic jam? And in that moment, I had this little voice in my head that's like, how did you used to respond to this? And I was like, oh, it used to all be about me. So when I got home, I got out my computer and I was writing about it. And I was writing, the way things used to be is anything could set me off. And I made this long list. And then I wrote this. I said, and 10 years ago, the way it was, my husband came to me and said that his work was going to send him away for several months. And secretly, I was glad, because I was so tired of trying to work on that relationship and everything else on my plate at the same time. And it was really hard to be happy that he wouldn't be around, instead of, because if you're not going to see your spouse for several months, you should be sad. Well, hopefully, or at least wonder or something. But I was just happy. I was relieved. Because I just felt it was hard. But it wasn't him. It was me. And I didn't know what to do for me. I didn't know. And now it's like, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, today I get to pick him up at the airport. And I'm like, I'm so glad that he's coming home. And like, I texted him yesterday. I'm like, hey, I checked you in for your flight because I want you to come home. And so the difference in our relationship is night and day. But it's not because he changed. It's not because he started doing the things that I wanted him to do in the relationship. It was because I was able to change me and why I wanted the changes. Because that's in me. That's not in somebody else. And so, yeah, it's well worth all the effort I've gone to have the relationship I have now.
Yeah, and I love it. Before the podcast, I mentioned your bracelet, which is amazing. And you lit up letting me know that I get to go pick up my husband.
I know.
And that's so exciting. And you look phenomenal, too. So I'm sure he'll be just as pleased.
I know. I didn't dress up just for you. Sorry.
No, honestly, it makes me happy hearing that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's bring it back to, how is that leaving my word? Honeymoon stage. Every day you want to get dressed up for your husband or your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your fiance.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to want to look good for date night or to pick them up.
Yeah. And I've been married 30 years, so that's saying something.
And bringing that back of, I'm going to dress up for my husband today, or I'm going to dress up for my wife today, because I also want them to know that I want to dress up for them. Yes,
but I'm not dressing up to try to fish a compliment.
Absolutely.
That's a big difference. Because then if that's my intention, then I am immediately opening myself up to be hurt.
Yes.
And being vulnerable and being hurt are not, what's the opposite of mutually exclusive? Mutually inclusive? They're not, you don't have to be hurt when you open up and are vulnerable. And it all depends on if I've chosen into my value, or if I'm still waiting for others to give me my value. Because there's a difference between internal value and a reflected value. And that's one of the big things that I've learned to shift, is being able to find my internal value instead of an external value. And we have to be careful of that when we put ourselves in any kind of, entrepreneurial is all about having an exchange that I'm going to make with people. And that exchange, if that exchange is all about, I need you to like me, I need you to prove to me that I'm worth something by wanting what I have to offer, and that includes a relationship, is an entrepreneurial experience too, then I am going to be less than in the relationship immediately. And so I need to learn to be able to know how to choose me so that others don't have to choose me. Others can make an exchange with me, but they don't have to make me feel like they don't get to decide my value. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I choose me. I am of value. I am enough because I am me.
Yeah. And now I want to be with you, who also chooses their own value.
Exactly. And what that does for entrepreneurs, whether they're selling a product or a service, is that you already know it's enough.
Yeah.
Somebody buying your product or a compliment or whatever the situation is doesn't determine that value.
It doesn't change my value. But sure, I want to work on my business. I want my business to be able to serve more people. I want to upgrade what I'm doing. Absolutely. But if it's going to change me, then I come in as the underdog. So it can't change me to have my business grow.
Absolutely. So going into your relationship again, what was that? Did you just start to work on yourself and naturally that started to upgrade your relationships, or was it a mutual work on in your relationship to make it to where it is today?
Yeah. I've worked with thousands of people, one-on-one and on stage and, in classes. And if you include in classes and online, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Well, yeah, if you include online, then it's millions, okay? And I have had the opportunity to work with couples. And it's really cool when both people in a relationship are in a place that they can grow in the same kinds of ways. But it's actually not important for them to be willing to grow in the same way. They just have to be willing to grow. In fact, I tell my children, I have 4 unmarried children, and I tell them that the most important thing you're looking for in a spouse is a willingness to grow, because you will not be the same person 5 years, 10 years down the road that you were the day you got married. You can't be. We're constantly changing. We're not the same person. Every cell in your body changes depending on which part of your body very quickly, or within 7 years, you're a completely different human than you were before. So we can't be the same. But I tell you all of that because my husband doesn't like the same flavor of self-development that I do. And at first, that bothered me because I'm like, well, wait a second. If he doesn't like this, there's something wrong with him. And then I'm like, well, is there? Well, no, maybe there's not something wrong with him, but I would like him to. It's like, well, do I need him to? No. So I had to go through this whole thought process of, is he willing to grow? Yes. Is he willing to grow the same way as me? No. Can that be okay? Yes. That was not a one-time conversation. That in my head, that took several years for me to realize he didn't have to grow the same way as me, and that was okay. But he is willing to grow. So I didn't have to spend my time trying to get him to enjoy or want or agree with anything that I was learning. I had to be willing to let him be him, and I could still grow me. But then we intentionally spent time together doing the things that were good together for us. Like, we don't enjoy all the same things, but there's things we enjoy. We don't grow the same way, but there are things that grow us, and then we can compare notes and be excited for each other without it having to be the same. Because I think sometimes people get stuck thinking that the way they learn to grow is the way it should be for everybody. When I mentor people, one of the things I do is I have them take a strengths test. And a strengths test is different than a personality test because it's not telling you who you are. It's saying, here's the lens you see the world through. But one of the things they say in the Strengths Finders is they say the likelihood of you interacting with somebody who has the same strengths as you is 1 in 33 million people. So you're not your spouse, your family, your siblings, your kids, your neighbors. You're not going to interact with anybody, statistically speaking, that's the same as you. And so we got to quit requiring that what works for us, it has to be something that works for them. We got to be more willing to be open to people growing the way they need to grow, and then coming together. So I call it being co-independent instead of being codependent. So that's what my husband and I learned to do, was to be co-independent, and it has made the biggest difference in our marriage.
That's freeing.
Absolutely.
To be able to be me, you be you, and we'll come together and build a life.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Because you don't need a clone of you, because then you don't have any more than what you already had. What you need is somebody who's different, that you can be co-independent and have more together.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure that was a journey to get there.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. And it's what allows for the success to taste so good.
Yeah.
It's almost like you go on a run and then you drink a glass of water. Something about that glass of water tasted so good, but the glass of water you had before the run wasn't anything special. It was just water.
Yeah.
And it's before the run, before that growth journey. Sure, is it good? Like the water? Yeah, it's good. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
But after you put in all that work and you have that glass of water, it's just refreshing.
Yes, absolutely.
So if there was, you mentioned awareness. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm going to backtrack because there's an interesting body language question that I have.
Oh, okay.
Somebody specifically comes to my mind that shows up very strongly in the world. They go to parties, they go to any interaction. They're welcoming, they're beautiful, and they shine. But when they're at home, that's when they go and curl up in a ball. What would you speak to that? I'm curious.
So when somebody you know personally?
Yeah.
So when they curl up in the ball at home, are they sad? Are they what's your impression of why they're curling up in a ball?
It's almost like they're serving the world, but they're not serving them.
So is that what it comes across as?
I would say so. I'm not them, so I can't speak for them, but it comes across as I'm serving the world, serving everybody, I'm not serving me. Or it could possibly be, I feel like I'm serving the world, but it doesn't feel like anybody's serving me.
So I'm going to come at that a couple of directions, okay? Because one of the interesting things about body language, because the world wants you to use body language to judge people, which is really fascinating. Because I've done national news, I've done all kinds of things, and that's what they love. That's what they love the most, is when you will make judgments with body language. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that all day long, but is that really where the power is in body language? So one of the ways that I'm unique is I choose to use body language in a way to help people find their amazingness instead of to judge people. So the reason I say that is we want to be careful that we don't decide that we saw body language in somebody, so it means this. What we want to use it for is to say, I saw this, so I'm going to ask this.
I love that.
That's the superpower, is I saw this, so I'm going to ask a question instead of I saw this, so this is you. I hate it when people think they get to decide who I am. I'm like, no, I get to choose that. That should not be outsourced. That is for me to do. So this person that you bring up, as I listen to you, because that's what I do, right? So I'm listening, I'm hearing your perspective. Can I ask if it's a girl or a boy?
Girl.
So I'm hearing your perspective of this girl through your body language and voice tones. Okay. So what I'm hearing is you're observing this person who it sounds like they are probably the same kind of introverted than I am. So I call introversion and extroversion how you recharge. Do you recharge around people or away from people? So somebody who needs to be alone to recharge doesn't mean they don't like people. They just need to be alone to recharge. Then they can go back out and be around people. And when they're around people, they seem extroverted, but it's the use of energy that determines the extroverted versus the introverted. Like I have a son who COVID year was the worst thing in the world for him because he recharges with people, and online doesn't do it for him. And so to not have contact with people was so hard. It was just draining for him. Every day he was like, his battery was lower and lower because there was nowhere to recharge. His brother, 2 years difference, was like, oh, this is the best. Because his battery was always getting charged because he could be alone. And so there's nothing wrong with recharging alone, as long as you don't start to couple negative emotions with the recharge. So as long as you can come back out of it, and it's a fine line that you have to be careful with people of their hiding depression, because people can hide depression. But as I listen to you, like, I don't know this person, so I would have to ask them questions.
Absolutely.
But listening to you, it doesn't sound like they're going into depression. It's so different for you to see the two sides of them that it makes you go, But if you saw in them like, no, I'm worried, they're like really low, and then they have to pull themselves up, and then they go out and then they like put on a fake face, that's a very different observation than, they're the life of the party, and then they're like, time to curl up in the ball. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thanks for shining light on that. That helps a lot. And it comes from a caring place. It's like, are you okay? But I love that you mentioned that. Body language is a tool for ourselves, but also to not judge people, but to just ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Are you doing okay? I'm recognizing this about you, and I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Yeah.
You look tired. Try not to say your body language looks like this. That feels judgy to people. Absolutely. You can notice it yourself, but use body language to cause you to ask a question.
Absolutely. So with that, what are some ways that people could start to implement body language into their own lives on a very basic level?
Oh, on the best thing is, so as a person who swore they would never be an entrepreneur and they would never sell anything in their life, and who now works as an entrepreneur in sales, I will tell you that one of the biggest things that helped me was to be able to do body language in the mirror, but not the way you think. I started by looking in the mirror and looking myself in the eye. Just see if you can look yourself in the eye. This is like a litmus test to see if you own your value or not. If you can look yourself in the eye and you're like, yeah, no problem. Cool. You can move on to step 2. But if you can't, then just start little bits at a time. Like maybe I can. The first time I looked myself in the eye and held my gaze for a few seconds, I burst into tears because I was so used to drawing the invisible curtain behind my eyes and not connecting with myself or anyone else. So I could make eye contact, but I didn't connect. And so starting with just that, if you can make eye contact, then from there, look yourself in the eye while you say your name. Say, I am Ann. And then say, and I am amazing. And then watch for all the wiggles that come up in your body language in the mirror. So do this in front of a full-length mirror. And if you have no wiggles, woohoo! And then you're ready for the big leagues. But most of us will have a bunch of wiggles. And so you want to see if you can do that, if you can practice this over a series of days or weeks to where you can look in the mirror and you can go, yeah, I am Ann and I'm amazing. And hold still for the next 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. You own it. That's an indicator that you own it. Because any wiggle that you see is your subconscious speaking through your body language saying, here's the spot I don't agree. Here's where I don't agree. So it might be in your fingers, and fingers all have a different meaning in body language. It might be in your shoulders, and shoulders have to do with responsibility. Okay, and so it might be in your level of responsibility, like, oh, I haven't filled all my responsibility, so it's not okay to choose into my amazingness yet. Or you might have it wiggles in your stomach or your hips areas, and that can indicate that you're afraid of the movement forward that will be required if you choose into you. Or if around your stomach area can mean that other people haven't given you permission yet to own who you are. So you're watching that body language. It's not as important that you know, like I know, every single piece of body language, as much as you know that your goal is to learn to hold still. Quick tangent. Yeah. So in meditation, they teach you that as you meditate, to let the thoughts go, because the thoughts, as you let them go, they're processing things inside of you. Well, body language is the same way. You don't have to know everything when you're looking in the mirror, but know that as you can let go of those wiggles, your subconscious had to upgrade its thinking. It had to install a new program to be okay with being still. That's kind of next level, but it's super powerful.
So clarifying question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, I am Braden and I am amazing. What constitutes as a wiggle? Like me trying to hold my hand, is that a wiggle? Like what's...
Anything.
Any
See
movement.
if you can just hold still. See if you can just hold still when you say that and for a few seconds afterwards.
I love that. Is it best for somebody to hold still crossing their arms down by their side? Like what's the best stance in a full body mirror?
I love it. Well, if you cross your arms, then it can hide some of the wiggles. So I would suggest putting your hands down to your side, not so you're like tin soldier. You're not trying to hold still. You're trying to see, is there anything in my subconscious that disagrees with this statement? That's what you're looking for. So you're not trying to force it. You're going, do I agree with this? And the more you come to agree with it, the stiller you become. I make up words all the time.
I love it. It makes it fun.
Right?
And I can only imagine, I haven't done this before. I'm looking forward to ending this podcast and going and doing it. I can only imagine, I can think my arm or my hand just wanted to wiggle.
Yeah.
And I didn't let it. Or it did it automatically because subconsciously that's the truth.
Yeah. So don't judge yourself with it. This isn't a judgment tool. This is an upgrade tool. So if you judge yourself with it, then you're trying to control it. Then it's like, why couldn't I get this to work? It's what should we call it? An exploration. I wonder how much my subconscious agrees with this statement. Let's watch and find out. And sorry, but I've been watching you for an hour. And
Absolutely.
So I know you're going to be doing pretty good when you do that, because you've worked through a few things that I've watched as I've talked to you. And so you've already, which you called it revamping, that's what you're doing when you upgrade your programs in your subconscious. You revamp your subconscious. You give it this chance to view the world from the next level. And so it doesn't mean you can recheck in with this every year or so and say, hey, do I still agree with this statement? Or has things happened in my life that it's time to revamp or upgrade again so I can view the world from the next stair or the next level?
Well, it's so, as you say that, I look at my story, and my pivotal moment included me looking at myself in my eyes.
Nice.
It's a big pivotal moment for me. And it took a long time for me to like the fact that I was Braden Belknap. I didn't like my name for a long time.
Oh.
And now
it's such a cool name.
It's what I teach everybody. The moment that you can say, I am your first and last name, that's when you fully know that you're living in your true authentic self.
See, exactly. And then just couple it with the mirror work. Absolutely. And it helps you have a chance to. I would call watching you somebody who has relaxed into who they are. Instead of waiting for permission to be who they are or trying to force themselves into who they are, relaxing into who you are is what I would call the synopsis of looking at you.
I love that. Thank you so much. And now what is step 3? Or is there a step 3?
Well, yes, and 4 and 5 and 6, but
and 7 and 8.
But those are not steps that everybody has to take. They're a buffet, if you will.
Sure.
So the next level would be, well, what don't I believe? Where do I not believe? Do I not believe because of my past programming? Do I not believe because of negative commentary in my head? Do I not believe because of past people who still have an opinion in my head? So we would check in with, where is the disbelief coming from? And I call disbelief belief in the opposite of fill in the blank. So if my belief is in my amazingness, my disbelief would be believing in the opposite of it. So where is the belief that I'm not amazing coming from? Is it somebody? Is somebody getting to tell me that? And the somebody could be the world at large. It could be my kindergarten teacher. It could be a relative. It can come from anywhere. And often people will say, oh, well, it just comes from me. And I'm like, but no. Most of the commentary in our head is not our own. And that's the problem, is we get to learn to sift through that and go, where is my voice? What is my commentary? And when we can let go of the others, because all growth requires the way this planet is set up, the way it's wired, the way the higher power designed it, is all growth requires 2 things. It requires a letting go, and it requires choices. And choices include, well, I hesitate to bring it up because it'll be a whole nother tangent, but I'll just briefly tell you. The choices require missing out on something. If I choose something, I automatically don't choose something else. So we have to get okay with missing out instead of fearing missing out. So I'll just leave it at that.
That's powerful, though. Everything comes down to choices. Each moment of your life is a choice.
And letting go. Letting go and choices. Those 2 things, they have to happen. They have to happen, and those are 2 things we resist so much. And part of the choices is because if we were just choosing between a good and a bad, we would all choose good all day long. It's a no-brainer. And well, what's good for me might be different than you, but most of the time we're choosing between two goods, which means I have to let go of something. I have to miss out on something. And being able to be okay with that helps us make decisions faster. And so being willing to let go and being willing to make choices. I'll just tell you this really quick. My mom, we lost her to cancer a few years ago. And the only people that were there when she passed were my son, my oldest son, and me. We're the only ones in the room through a bunch of circumstances as to why that are really fascinating. But when she passed, my son was sitting next to her with his head on her shoulder. And within 5 minutes after she died, 30 people were there. Because they were all on the way. It was so fascinating. They were all on their way there because we knew that she was going. So within 5 minutes, there were 30 people there. So my son steps out of the room and talks to me and he goes, "Mom, you know what I realized? I realized that learning how to let go is such an important part of this earth that when you die, the last thing you do is let go of your body. We have to let go. We have to learn to let go. We have to learn to miss out. And it doesn't make us wrong. It doesn't make us bad. And it doesn't change our value. But it does help us to be a brighter light. Because my motto is, we're here to be a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. And as an entrepreneur, you're not here to carry people. You're here to be an example. You're here to shine a light. And so the more we can learn to do those things, if I can let go, if I can miss out and still be okay, I shine brighter every time I do it.
And that pressure that's just relieved from your shoulders, saying I'm a life house and not a lifeboat, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I'm sure you're proud of your son.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's powerful. I had him start writing down his epiphanies because he's a writer. I'm a talker. He's a writer.
It's good that you know your strengths, and I'm sure you've helped your son find his as well.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So I have one last question around the podcast, and then we'll wrap some things up.
Okay.
But I'm curious, what's the most recent thing you've been working on yourself to grow?
The most recent thing I've been working on myself. So I'm always looking to work on myself physically. Currently I'm working on handstand walks because I want to be able to walk on my hands. I've got all the skills. I just have to get past my head. I have to be willing to be a little bit more scared. So physically, I've been working on that. Emotionally, I have some challenges that are happening in my family right now that have been squeezing the emotions out of me. Life has a way of doing that. If you think of yourself like a sponge, life will squeeze you. And you get to choose if you'll allow that or if you become rigid and it breaks you. So I've been working on some personal, family, emotional things. And mentally, I've been trying to learn to write because I know I'm not a writer, but I need to be. So I've been pushing myself to write. And because what I'm really good at doing is I'm really good at taking everything that I know and see and individualizing it to the person I'm talking to. But because of that, I've not written a lot of it down because I always cater it or curate it to the person I'm talking to. And so I'm trying to build that skill. I want to build that skill. So I've started writing. Like I told you that when I got home from CrossFit, I wrote that experience down because I wouldn't have done that in the past. So that's what I'm doing to work on me. And
I'm sure naturally it helps you be a better talker as well. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
We'll see. We'll see. So I do that, and spiritually is the other area. So I try to work on those areas, and all of those will improve your connections with other people.
I love that. Life is definitely a forever journey of growth, but it's a choice to let things go and to continue to move forward.
Yeah. So if you look at it, we're all here trying to make more space instead of close down. My mom said it well. She taught kindergarten. her whole career. And I asked her once, why do people want their kids in your class? Because I was her kid. I didn't know why they wanted them. And she goes, because I create an atmosphere of love and acceptance where kids feel safe to learn and grow. And so when I changed careers, I realized I needed a motto. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to take my mom's. I want to create an atmosphere of love and acceptance where people feel safe to try new things. And so that's what I'm trying all the time, is to create a bigger and bigger open space where people feel like they can try new things, where they can change, where they can up level. Because if we don't feel safe, we close down and we become smaller. And this world right now wants people to be smaller. And entrepreneurs are some of those people who are choosing out of smallness. They're choosing to create more openness. And whether your first attempt at entrepreneuring pans out and is amazing and blows up, or your 30th, you're going to learn every step. You're going to be more open. Choose the open. Don't choose the closed. Open is the fun. That's the freedom.
And you only have to be right once.
Yeah.
And being open is open to learning along the journey until you're right that one time.
Yeah. And it's the letting go, the missing out, openness, choosing into who you are, the mirror work. It's all about becoming more open.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on, Ann. This has been a huge blessing, and I'm so excited for everybody to hear this.
Well, thanks for having me. I love talking to you.
So if there's one last thing you could leave with the audience today, what would that be?
Choose who you are. Choose freedom. Don't outsource it. Quit outsourcing your value. Choose it, and then shine it. Shine it for other people to feel like they can choose their own. Because my light shines brighter because I chose me, but I don't choose for anybody else. I just shine a light that lets them choose them.
I love that. And last question is, what is your definition of an authentic life?
An authentic life? That would be, you didn't give me that question ahead of time. But to me, an authentic life is, if I've chosen my value, then I'm authentic. Because now I'm not doing me for everybody else. That's what exhausts us, is when we're doing us for everyone else. And that doesn't mean that I don't take responsibility. It doesn't mean that I don't help people. It means that I choose me and I shine that light and I encourage others to do the same.
I love that. Thank you so much, Ann. And is there anything that we can do for you and the audience, of course?
Oh, yeah. If you guys want to reach out to me and say hi to me or ask me questions, I live to interact with people. And that's saying a lot, because 13 years ago, I hated all people because they were so scary. But I love people. So if you reach out to me, ask me questions, I love it. And so you can find me online. I'll give you my email address. People can email me.
Perfect. And I'll put all that in the description below. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Hey,
can I give a gift to your audience?
Please do.
Would you like that?
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
By you, I mean you guys that are listening. So I have 2 audiobooks that I prepared to give as a gift. And one of them talks about how to manage negative commentary in your head. And the other one talks about how to manage our perfectionism, because perfectionism is one of those things that gets us in trouble in our world, because imperfect moves a lot faster than perfect does, which we think if we're perfect, we'll move forward faster. But it's not true. And so Perfection is a Direction is the name of that. So if you'd like, I'll give you the link for them to be able to download both of those audiobooks as a gift.
Absolutely. I would love that. And I'll put those below as well for everybody.
I love it.
Thanks so much, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much for listening to the Journey to Authenticity podcast. If you liked what you heard from Ann Washburn and I, go ahead and subscribe and leave a review. This helps me to get the most qualified guests. It creates the most interesting content to drive you results home. That in mind, why I have you, I also want to bring your attention to my one-on-one coaching. If you're ready to truly transform your life, whether that's with yourself, your life, your relationships, or your business, I'm here to be in your corner so you can make the transformation you're looking for. Either go to bradenbelknap.com or the link below, and I'll look forward to helping you out. Have a good one, everybody.